The NBA trade deadline is now just 1 week away, and we've got the latest intel here on the Basketball Bulletin, including what's going on the Myles Turner trade front. I'm Trevor Lane. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. We'll keep you up to date on everything heading into what should be a very exciting trade deadline. All right, so here's what's going on from Mark Stein on his Substack, talking about specifically the Myles Turner situation first. We've got a lot of different things we're going to get into, but the Pacers' phones are ringing with interest in Myles Turner, but prevailing league-wide sense is that the Pacers don't want to trade Turner. Well, of course, that makes a lot of sense that they don't want to trade him. They've been playing really well lately, and he's a big part of it. You also have to, if you are switching out Myles Turner for another center, which is probably what the Pacers would need to do if they were to move on from him. If they were going to switch him out for another center, if it's not a three-point shooting big, you would have to revamp a lot of the way that your offense operates because Turner provides the floor spacing that he does as a three-point shooting big man. However, there's strong belief among league personnel that Indiana would need to see proposals that return a starting level center to consider the notion. There's been some chatter among fans out there that, maybe could this somehow loop Nikola Vucevic, who can shoot the three, towards Indiana, Myles Turner going to a third team, and there you go. Now, what would be the reason for doing this? If you are the Indiana Pacers, it would be because of concerns that the Pacers may not want to pay him. He is a free agent this summer, but the team is 10-2 in 2025. So there's some sense that they would be very, very hesitant to move on from him. If the Pacers decide they don't want to pay him, part of the reason for that would be because of where they currently sit salary-wise and the way that would actually look for them for next season. They would, especially if Myles Turner gets the rumored $30 million that's out there, they would quickly, particularly when we look at the increase coming here, you've got Andrew Nembhard jumping from $2 million to $18 million next season. That's a big increase. And what we'd be talking about is a Myles Turner on $30 million. You're looking at not just a taxpayer team, but a first tier inching closer to second tier apron type team, depending on how some of these other contracts work out. So that could be maybe cause for the Pacers to say, you know what, this is getting too expensive. We're going to move on from Turner. But it may not be Turner they decide to move on from. If they do decide that, this is simply not working right now, maybe we'll make a different kind of move. That's some of the rumblings out there that Stein noted, was that they may instead decide to move on from, say, a Benedict Mathurin, someone like that, to make one of their wings available, to make it easier to keep Turner. And maybe that's the preferred route. So even if Indiana is truly worried about what's going to happen next year with their cap, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would move Myles Turner. They might decide to move a wing instead, and if Benedict Mathurin is on the market, he would be expected to have a pretty big market with a lot of interest from around the league. Now, also noted, this could influence how likely the Pacers are to pursue Cam Johnson. And right now, the Nets continue to be seeking at least 2 first-round picks. Remember, we've talked a lot about it here, but the Nets, they don't have to trade Cam Johnson. Well, you may look at that price tag and say, well, 2 first-round picks, that's crazy. Dorian Finney-Smith went for seconds. Dennis Schroeder went for seconds. All these other guys around the league. I mean, Nick Richards went for seconds. All these guys are going for seconds. Now, Cam Johnson is a starter. Those guys are primarily backup players or perhaps starters, depending on the team. But Cam Johnson would be a locked-in starter somewhere. Okay, so maybe it'd be a first-round pick. But what the Nets are selling right now is that they've got him under contract, $22.5 million this year, $20.5 million next year, and then $22.5 million after that. So it's not like he's an expiring contract, which is the case with Myles Turner, where there would be some kind of urgency to trade him right now. If the Pacers decide we're not going to pay Myles Turner, they need to move him. There's no question. They have to move him within the next week. Otherwise, they'd risk losing him for nothing, although there's not a lot of teams out there with cap space for him to go to over the summer. So what that could result in would be a sign and trade situation, which is what Miami is kind of falling back on with Jimmy Butler. I know they definitely want to move him, and I think they are going to move him by the trade deadline. But if they don't, their response to Jimmy can be, well, where are you going to go? I mean, you need our help to get somewhere. So the Miami Heat aren't worried about losing Jimmy Butler for nothing. Same thing is true with the Pelicans and Brandon Ingram. With this situation with Cam Johnson, again, there isn't even that urgency of, well, he could hit free agency this summer and then we have to sign and trade him somewhere. It's not even that. He's under contract. They could wait and trade him next year if they want. They could trade him this summer if they want. They could trade him the season after if they wanted to. They don't have to move him right now, and they're losing plenty of games as is, so they don't have to get him off their roster just in order to ramp up their tank. So that's the situation with Cam Johnson. But will the Pacers actually get involved? Well, the way they've suddenly been winning games, that might actually dissuade them from getting involved on the Cam Johnson front. Now, from there, the Atlanta Hawks have been willing to trade veteran center Clint Capela, and that's been known for a while. He's got an expiring salary this year, and there's a market for bigs right now. There are a number of teams that are looking for bigs, but there's also a lot of bigs available. Most teams are asking for a lot in exchange for particularly starting caliber centers. That's what we heard from Dan Moike of the LA Times yesterday. But there's names like Nikola Vucevic, Jonas Valanciunas, maybe Jakob Poeltl, Robert Williams, right? I mean, the list goes on and on. There are a number of bigs that are out there on the market right now. But it might not just be Clint Capela that the Hawks are willing to move. They could move Capela, but they may also look to move Bogdan Bogdanovic. And Brett Siegel of Clutch Points added in that not only would the Hawks be willing to part with Bogdanovic, but that the Phoenix Suns may actually be pivoting away from Jimmy Butler if they can't figure out a team to take on Bradley Beal, and instead might look to do a swap around Yusuf Nurkic and Bogdan Bogdanovic. So that would be an interesting move for the Suns to add a piece. Interestingly enough, though, Grayson Allen kind of already plays a somewhat Bogdan Bogdanovic role. But if we look at Bogdanovic's salary, you've got $17.26 million this year. Next season, you've got $16 million and then $16 million, but zero guaranteed. So it's really a 2-year contract, but $16 million totally non-guaranteed the year after that. And then we look at Yusuf Nurkic, also a 2-year deal worth just a bit more than what Bogdanovic is making. Now, what would be the incentive for the Atlanta Hawks to do something like this, to move off of Bogdanovic? Well, you've already got some guys that you could certainly give minutes to. You've got Zachary Sachet that needs minutes. You've got plenty of wings. Jalen Johnson, unfortunately, lost to the seat for the season now due to a shoulder injury. We'll see if that changes the Hawks' willingness to move on from Bogdanovic. But they've got other players that they can play out there. And Bogdanovic might have some real value. So if the Suns are willing to give up some of that first-round draft capital they were able to get in that pick swap trade they did, where they traded their 2031 pick for 3 first-round picks, if they're willing to give up some significant value there to get the Hawks to take Nurkic, and the Hawks already have a trade, say, for Clint Capela, and he's going somewhere else, well, as long as they're getting rewarded for taking on the extra year of salary for Nurkic, and you're moving Capela out, and Nurkic can be your backup behind Onyeka Okongwu, then maybe it makes sense for Atlanta to explore something, sending Bogdanovic to the Suns. Is Bogdanovic enough, though, for the Suns to really, get over the top? I know a lot of the talk has been Jimmy Butler to Phoenix. Jimmy Butler wants to get to Phoenix. Phoenix is willing to pay him. And there we go. I think he would help the Suns a lot. I think having Jimmy, KD, and Booker, while long-term, that's not a great grouping because KD and Jimmy are 36 and 35 years old, but that could be a really good, certainly a better trio than Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. Does Bogdanovic, turning Nurkic into Bogdanovic, move the needle that much? I do like Bogdanovic. The Suns do need more quality players they can add into their rotation, but maybe not the big structural change that would significantly alter the Suns' fortunes. But again, if they are at a point where they simply can't find a Jimmy Butler trade, or because they can't find anybody to take Bradley Beal, maybe that's the best path for them to go down, to ultimately just try to do a smaller move around Yusuf Nurkic and Bogdan Bogdanovic. So that might be something to keep an eye on as well. So as I said, a lot going on around the NBA trade market right now. There are a few other minor things that are happening currently. Some word that the Golden State Warriors may have interest in Zach LaVine instead of Jimmy Butler. That's an interesting thing, and noting that Steve Kerr coached Zach LaVine with Team USA in the past. So maybe there's something there if the Warriors decide, what, the asking price, what we're going to have to give up to get Jimmy. We really don't want to give Jonathan Kuminga. We've decided we're not going to put him in any trade. Could they instead pivot and go try to get Zach LaVine to add firepower to this team? By the way, the Warriors did have a really nice win last night against the Thunder. They got their shooting going. They were hitting insane shots. Kyle Anderson hitting turnaround jump shots and stuff. Steph doing Steph things. So maybe that's something that reignites the Warriors season here. But the Warriors apparently not all in on Jimmy either. So kind of interesting that in the last, 10 hours or so, we've heard the Suns maybe kind of pivoting away from Jimmy Butler because they can't find anybody to take Bradley Beal. And the Warriors might have another option that's not Jimmy Butler in Zach LaVine. I wonder how much of that is to squeeze Miami a little bit and get them to take even less for Jimmy as we head into this February 6th trade deadline. But a lot going on the NBA trade market, obviously. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin. We'll keep you up to date as much as we can with all of the latest happenings. Again, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to go check out our latest video right now.